So Be'ezer Hashem, we'll start off Yudalid in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that the whole 7 days that the Kohen Gadol has put away, so Uzoyrek es Adam, he does the Zrik es Adam, he's Maktir the Ktoires, he's Meitiv the Neirois, he's Makriv the Rosh and the Regel. And all the rest of the days, it's up to him if he wants to be Makriv, he's Makriv, because the Kohen Gadol has the ability to be Makriv whenever he wants and to take as much as he wants. We'll see in the Gemara exactly what it means from the animals, but he can always take first. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says the Mishnah that says that the whole 7 days he does all the avoid on the base of Mikdash cannot be in the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that says that if Hazah falls on a Torah, he becomes Tomei. So we know we give Hazahs to the Kohen Gadol every single day, so he can't work. So according to that, it's not going to be according to Rabbi Akiva. We saw that Abaye says that it could work like Rabbi Akiva because he can work the whole day, and by the end of the day, he could receive the Hazah and then go to the mikveh and again be told the next day. The Gemara brings a machlekes here between Rabbi Akiva and Chachamim that we mentioned, whether when the Torah says Visa Torah la Tomei, the Torah comes to teach me the halacha of that only if you do Hazah on a Tomei, he's going to be told, but if you do Hazah on a Torah, he becomes Tomei. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. According to Chachamim, it comes to teach a different halacha that if a person meant to do Hazah before meant, if a person did Hazah on something which is Mekabel Tumo, the water which is left is kosher to continue doing another Hazah with it, but otherwise it becomes possible. And even if the person meant to do Hazah on a person and he did on a behemo, so we look at what got the Hazah, not what he had in mind. Okay. According to Chachamim, we say Akal V'chomer. If an atome is tall, so for sure an toil is going to remain tall, but Rabbi Akiva says, it's right, it doesn't make sense. And even Shlomo Mel says, I don't understand it. It's way above me. And Chachamim say that what's above Shlomo, what he couldn't understand, how is it possible that even though someone which you're mazeh on him, or the person which does the hazah is tall, but a person which touches becomes tomei, or a person that carries it not for the purpose of hazah becomes tomei. And the reason the Torah says hamazeh, it just comes to tell me the amount is needed, which is the shiur hazah. And even according to the opinion that the shiur of spritzing on the person is kolshu, but there's a minimum need to be in the kli that you take the hazah from the drasha giv oilim, the top of the giv oilim can go and dip in water of hazah. Okay. Now the Gemara goes to a different sugya, the sugya of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says ktoires and then neiros. And the Gemara asks that if you take a look in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah is in Tamid, so there it says the opposite, that it goes Dishnu Mizbeach Apnimi, then Menoiro, which is Neiros, and then Ktoires. So what comes first, the Neiros or the Ktoires? So the Gemara answers, first answer that it's Shimon Isha Mitzpah. One of them is Shimon Isha Mitzpah, and it can't be Tamid Shimon Isha Mitzpah, because in Tamid it says that the way you do the Hazois of the Oilas Atamid is first you give Hazah over here, and then you give Hazah over here. You do one Zrika, which is Shtaim Shen Arba, but according to and according to Shimon Isha Mitzpah, after doing the Zrika over here like an oilo, you do over here in this corner like a chatos also, but not in the top, just in the bottom, but with your finger. That's how it seems to be, at least the Shita of Rabbeinu Eliakim, that you do with your finger, one here and one here. So the Mishnah there cannot be, the Mishnayos and Talmud cannot be according to Shimon Isha Mitzpah, so it must be that Yoma is Shimon Isha Mitzpah. But the Gemara says even in Yoma there's a stira, because in our perek we see again that he does first the Ktoires and then the Neiros. But if you look at the second perek, it says he does the Neiros before. So the Gemara has two answers for that. Either that our Mishnah that says that the Ktoires is before is the Shita of Chachamim, and there that it says that the Neiros is before the Ktoires is the Shita of Abashol. Or, one second, I said the answer is not in order, but it's okay. Or that we're talking about different shlavim, because the way the Kohen, even according to everyone, the Kohen used to break the hatova of the Neiros. The Neiros, he didn't do all the 7 together. He did 5, and then he stopped with something. And then after he did 5 and stopped with something, he did the other 2. So according to Abba Shaul, he broke between them with the dam of the Tamid, and the Ketores happened only afterwards. And according to Chachamim, the break between the two, between the 5 and the 2, was with the Ketores. So therefore, it works beautiful. When it says Ketores before Neros, we talk before the 2. When it says the Neros before the Ketores, it's the 5 before. Tosfos says, why doesn't the Gemara speak about the 5? Because Tosfos says that the Kohen Gadol did not do the 5, he only did the 2. So that's why it says Ketores and then Neros. It doesn't speak about the Neros, which is before. Okay. The reason Abaye doesn't say like Rav Papa, who said that it's machlokes between Abba Shaul and Chachamim, because then it would come that our Mishnah is Chachamim, then the Mishnah in Perik Beis is Abba Shaul, and then the Mishnah in Perik Gimel is Be'ach Chachamim, which was hard for Abaye to say. And the reason Rav Papa didn't say like Abaye, because it comes out that our Mishnah speaks about the 2. And then the Mishnah in Perik Beis our Mishnah speaks about the 2, which comes after the Ketores, and the Mishnah in Perik Beis speaks about the 5, which comes before the Ketores, so it's not going in order. And Abaye says, the Tana is just coming to tell you what the Kohen Gadol was doing. And again, Tosfos explains that it's not Stam telling you that what the Kohen Gadol was doing. He was really doing only the last 2 when he was practicing in the 7 days. Okay, now we're going into the Shita of Rav Shimon Isha Mitzpah, and the Gemara says, what's his reason? So the reason is because it says in the Pasuk by Rosh Chodesh, it says, meaning do something which is chatos on the oilas atomid, put it on the oilas atomid. So we don't do both because we don't find anything that you do a full set of hazois and then you do again a different set. We don't do part up and part down because we don't find such a concept of part up and part down. And what it says by achas lemala v'sheva lemata, it doesn't mean on the top part and the bottom part of the Oron HaKodesh. It means that he spritzes with his finger going up and with his finger going down, but it all goes down straight on the floor. And the Gemara says what it says that he does on the Mizbeach, after he comes out of the Kodesh HaKodashim, and he does on the Paroiches, then he does on the Mizbeach. So it says Tahor Hashem Mizbeach. It doesn't mean the side of it, which we don't see. It means the top, which we do see, and it's called Tahor Hashem Mizbeach because he clears out the coals and then he does it. Okay. The Gemara says, why does he do first like an oila? Because it's an oila. The Ma'aseh, the Korban Atomid is an oila, so that comes first. And okay, now the Gemara asks, according to everyone, why don't we start from this corner? And the reason is because there's no Yasoid. As you can see in the picture, the Yasoid is not in this corner, as we saw. It's not in the Chelik of Binyamin, according to one opinion. That's the reason. According to the other opinion, it's just because Hakol is the way Hashem commanded, and that's how Hashem commanded. Okay, and the reason he starts over here and then comes to here is because by chatos, by always when a person does a chatos, a person will go up the kevesh, then turn right, because there's a din to turn right, and not to start with turning right. So he turns right, and he would get to this corner first, and then he would get to this corner, and that would be a circle. So even other korbanos that you do on the floor and you don't need to go on the kevesh, you still start the same direction. Then you turn right, so therefore you get to this corner before this corner. Okay, the Gemara says, because it says the chatos al oilo, so we know that the oilo you do like a chatos and not the opposite. Okay. Now we go to, there's a stiro, another stiro that even Rashi says has nothing to do with our sugya. Just because we spoke about stiros and the Mishnayos and Talmud and Midas, so we're speaking about that too. We have over here a place which is called Beis HaMoikel. Now, Beis HaMoikel is very interesting. You see there's little pieces of wood over here in the middle. I hope you can see it. These little things are little pieces of wood to show, because this part has Kedusha, and this part doesn't have Kedusha. This part is Choil, and this part you can sit down, and this part you're not allowed to sit down, like the rest of the Azorah. So it says In one place it says that the lishko of the tloim, there was a lishko that they kept at least 6 tloim mevukorim, always without mum, to be ready for tmidim. So one place it says that the lishka of the tloim is tzfoinis ma'arovis. So Ma'arov is this part of the Beis Hamikdash. See, and Ma'arov going towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim is Ma'arov. So Ma'arov is this part. So, and it says, one place it says it's Tzfoinis Ma'arovis, and in Tomid it says, that's in Tomid, and in Midos it says in Droimis Ma'arovis, which means over here. So the question is, where were the Tloim? Were they here or were they here? So that's the stira. So the Gemara has 2 answers to this. The first answer is on Daf Tet Zayin, and the second answer is on Daf Yud Zayin. One daf later comes the second answer, because after the Gemara says the first answer, which is that the Maseches Tamid goes in the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Gemara goes and explains how do we know that it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and Tet Zayin is tomorrow's, right? Yeah, Tet Zayin is tomorrow. So let's just go quick. I don't know if you can see because we have to start all the way from here at the bottom. You can't see it. Okay. So in quick, very, very short. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's okay. It's fine. Okay. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says that the Tana of Midos is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. And the proof that it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the proof that it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Gemara says, also one place it mentions his name, and also the Gemara says it says like this, that there was outside the picture, imagine the size of the picture, which doesn't have anything. This was the walls of Har HaBayis. From here is the Soireg. And this is already steps going up to the Beis Hamikdash. And over here, there was around the whole thing, there was another wall. And this wall was the wall of Har HaBayis. So now, when the Kohen which did the Poro Adumo, so he would have to see all the way from Har HaMishcha, which is a different mountain, looking through here, through this, which is another door, and he needed to see all the way to the Petach of the Heichel. So he would need to see all the way from the outer wall, all the way into the Petach of the Heichel when he spritzes the dam. As we saw that we put him in Nishka Tzvoinis Mizrachis, and the Mizrach is because he goes toward the Shara Mizrach of the Beis Hamikdash, which is here, and he needs to see all the way to here. So the problem is that when you look here, you see this, the purple is already going 6 amos high. And when you go to here, that's another 7.5 amos. So you're already 13.5 amos. And over here, you have another 6 amos going. So altogether, it's 19.5 amos. Now the doors of the Beis Hamikdash, besides the door of the Heichal, which was taller, the doors were, from the beginning, they were all 20 amos tall. So if you get 6 plus 7.5 plus 6, so you're at 19.5, and that's okay, because he can still see the door. You can see, he looks at the top of the door, and you can see in the last half an amma, you can see the Heichal. So that's why it's okay, and you can have normal wall above the door. But according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, if you see this black line over here, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, this line is another amma going up. And since there's another amma going up, so it's already 20 amma and a half, so he's not going to be able to see through the door. So according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he would have to have the first wall short, right above the door it would stop, and then he can see above the wall, not through the door, above the wall he can see to the Heichal. And the Mishnah in Tomid says that the wall over here was short, right above the door it stopped, so you see that it's the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Gemara says that maybe it can be a different shita. Maybe the reason he had to look above the wall is not because over here it went up another amma. It's because for a different reason. This is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that the Mizbeach is not over here on the side. It was more centered. It was centered exactly from this wall to this wall of the Heichal was the Mizbeach. And since the Mizbeach is 9, right, so we're already holding in 22.5. So there was, or right? So there was no room to see from the door. That's why you needed to look above the wall, and you couldn't look through the wall. And the Gemara says that would work according to Rabbi Yehuda, but then there's a Mishnah that says what was in the Azara from this side to this side was 187, and it counts where everything was, so that can work. But then when it says we're counting from here to here 135 amo, and it says, look, there's the space between here and the kevesh, and then this is 62, and then there's a space here. So the Gemara comes out that the Mizbeach couldn't be centered according to the Maseches Midos. So obviously Maseches Midos is not Rabbi Yehuda, it is the Shita of Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Okay, that's the end of Daf Tet Zayin. Okay, so now Be'ezer Hashem we'll start from the beginning. You want to give me this thing? Maybe I will use the simonim. There's a very nice thing here called Bnei Yehuda that they have also simonim to remember. You have one word for every daf to remember what's on this daf to remember. So daf beis is for the word bira, right? Everyone knows there's the bira on daf beis amud aleph. So on daf beis amud aleph they bring you that 7 days before Yom Kippur we take the Kohen Gadol out of his house to Lishkas Parhedrin. We give him a different Kohen as a substitute. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we're also giving him another wife substitute because maybe his wife is going to die. And it says, Ba'ad Revad Beisoi, and Beisoi is Ishtoi. And according to Chachamim, En La Dovel Soif. Okay. Then we see also that 7 days before doing the Poro Aduma, we're mafrish the Kohen, which is going to do the whole process and burn the Poro Aduma. And we bring him to a place which is Lishko, She'al Pnei Abiro. And we had the machlokes whether it means, it's somewhere over here, but according to Reish Lakish and according to Rabbi Yochanan, because the whole Beis Hamikdash is called Biro, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, Biro is a special place in Arabais. It was called Beis Ha'even. The reason it was called Beis Ha'even, because everything is done there, is done in Klei Avoni, which are not Mekabel Tumo, and Chachamim made this Chumra, because since we're Metamed, the Kohen, which is Sarif Daporon, in order to show the Tzdukim, that he could be at Tvul Yoim. So therefore, we make all kind of chumres, and the reason it's in Tzafon Mizrach, so there will be a heker for the paro that's considered a chatos, which is nishchat batzafvain. And when he throws the blood, as we saw now, he stands in Hara Zeisim, which is across from here, and he spritzes towards the Mizrach entrance of the Beis Hamikdash. And he needs to see the Heichal, which is the Mizrach entrance of the Kodesh, the Heichal in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Okay. So, how do we know that 7 days? So we learn 7 days. It says, Kasher also bayom hazeh tziva Hashem la'asos lechaper aleichem. And we learn la'asos as poro lechaper as Yom Kippur. Now, for Beis Amud Beis, they give a siman. The siman is baregel, right? Remember the Gemara has a tzad, maybe it should be baregel, one of the regalim. And you can't say that the whole pasuk is talk about Yom Kippur, because it's kapara, because we learn tziva that it's talking also about para. We can't learn the tziva to Yom Kippur because it's not exactly the same, because the Yom Kippur is after the Asiyah, and we can't learn tziva for korbanos because it's not the exact same word. Now, why can't we say that lechaper means korbanos, and any base av that comes to work in the Beis Hamikdash would need to have prisha for 7 days? So the reason is because we learned something which is kavua lozman, something a korban which has a special, unique time. So therefore, lechaper means Yom Kippur, and you can't learn te regalim because we learn something which is like only once a year. So therefore, you can't. And what's the reason you can't learn? Let's choose just Pesach, and the reason is because always the pasuk mentions him first, or Sukkot, because it has many mitzvahs, Sukkah, Lulav. And the reason is because we learn prisha of 7 to 1 day. So why not Shmini Atzeres, which is 1 day? Because we learn something which doesn't have kedusha before him to something which doesn't have kedusha before him. And we can't say, oh, it's even more so, because it says in the pasuk, Hazeh, it has to be mamish like the Sheva Yemei Miluim. That's the first answer. And the second answer, that it's impossible that the Ika Regel won't need a prisha in the 8th day will need a prisha. And even according to the Mandoma that says that the 8th day is a Yom Tov on his own, he's only a Yom Tov on his own to Pazar Kashev, but he's not a Yom Tov on his own legamre, because he can be Hashlomo, he can be Tashlumin for for the Chagiga, if a person did not bring his Chagiga, Korbanos, Itzukis, he can bring it also in Shmini Atzeres. So, what is Pazer Kashev? Okay, Pazer Kashev is pais, which means on the par of the Shmini, we make a special pais. We don't continue giving it to the Mishmoros. All the Mishmoros had the chance to do, almost all the Mishmoros had the chance to do 3 times besides 2. We don't give it to one of these 2. We give it to all the Mishmoros to make a pais. Whoever wins, wins. We also say Shechionu. Also, it doesn't have the name of Sukkot in davening. We say Shmini Chag Atzeres Hazeh. It doesn't have the same, it doesn't go in the order of the Korbanos. It doesn't continue with the set. It has a special Korbanos. The Shir, Rashi says that he doesn't know what it is. Toisus brings the Shir is Lam Natzeach Al Hashminis, which that's what we say today. And the reason is, and the point is, it doesn't fit with the Shirim of Sukkot. The Shirim of Sukkot, they're all about the Matnos Anim, and that's a special, unique Shir which doesn't have to do it. And this is a special bracha to the life of the king. We give him a bracha, should have a long life. Okay. Now, the Gemara says, more questions. Why don't we say, for Shavuos, coming up, it's a Prisha of Sheva to one day. Why don't we say for Shavuos? So, there's different answers. Either that we learn Yom Kippur, that it's 1 par and 1 aisle, and Shavuos it's 2 ailim. Now, even according to the man De'omad than Yom Kippur, there's 2 ailim, but one is L'choy Vasayom and one is Lamusafim, so it's not the same, but in Shavuos they're both L'choy Vasayom. Okay, now the Gemara brings, why don't we say it's Rosh Hashanah? And there's 4 terutzim that answer also, these terutzim also answer for our other questions. So either did on Yom Kippur, the par and aisle come from his money, which is similar to Miluim, which also was from his money. Other things don't come from his money, it comes from the tzibur. And how do we know that on Miluim and on Yom Kippur it came from his money? How do we know that Yom Kippur comes from his money? Because it says Kach Lecha, and usually there's a machlokes when it says Kach Lecha, does it mean from yours, or it doesn't mean from yours, but over here it's extra, and it's clear it comes from yours. Oh, so 1 second. For Daf Gimel, I don't know if the Siman is so good. They say in Daf Gimel there's Gimel questions, there's 3 questions. Why don't we say Shmini Atzeres or Shavuos or Rosh Hashanah? I don't know if you remember already the 3 questions, so you'll remember the Daf too. According to Rav Ashi, the answer is that what you bring the korban for, also on Yom Kippur and also on Miluim, the par was chatos and the aisle was oilo, but everything else, all the korbanos are oilos. According to Ravina, we learn Kohen Gadol from Kohen Gadol. Everything else wasn't Kohen Gadol, or that it's avodah tchila b'makom. It's the first time working in the Beis Hamikdash was the Miluim. The first time in Kodesh HaKodashim was Yom Kippurim. So, okay, what's the mokol for being Peiresh 7 days? So, by Yom Kippurim we saw it's lechaper. By Poro, so we saw until now it comes from the word Lasois. According to Rabbi Yochanan, Lasois lechaper both go on Yom Kippur, and the Poro is just a Milo. And according to Rish Lakish, we learn from Har Sinai to Yom Kippur that when you go to Machne Shechino, you need Prisha, and the Prisha of the Poro is, again, the Prisha of the Poro is probably also Milo Be'alma, as we're going to see. Now, according to that, if you learn from Yom Kippur, okay. If you learn from Yom Kippur, so what's the problem? If you learn from Yom Kippur, so the question is why it's not Me'akev. And if you learn from Sinai, so why 7 days? By Sinai, it says in the Pasuk 6 days. So the 7th day is for like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betero, which is Choishesh, that his wife will become Tomei, and that's why he gives him another day.